This happened in the autumn of 2019. I was 24 and working for a high-end real estate staging company in Connecticut. If you don't know what a stager does, basically when a wealthy person moves out of their mansion, we come in and fill the empty rooms with high-end furniture, art, and decor so the house looks perfect for potential buyers. I usually worked in a team, but since it was a busy season, my boss sent me alone to a property in an old, moneyed town called Ridgefield. The house was a massive 1920s Tudor-style estate sitting on 6 acres of woods. The previous owners had already moved to London, so the house was completely vacant. My job was to spend 3 days there, overseeing the furniture movers and then doing the fine-tuning, placing the books on shelves, setting the dining table, and arranging the lifestyle items like candles and throw pillows. The first day went fine. The movers left around 4 p.m. and I stayed until 7 p.m. to start on the master suite. The house was beautiful, but it was one of those places where the silence felt heavy. Every time I moved a chair, the sound echoed through the entire floor. On the second day, I arrived at 9 a.m. I walked into the kitchen, which I had finished the night before, and noticed something weird. On the staged breakfast nook table, I had placed a decorative bowl of high-quality wax fruit and a single empty designer coffee mug. Now, there was a small puddle of liquid at the bottom of the mug. I leaned in and smelled it. It was milk. Cold, fresh milk. I checked the fridge. It was a high-tech Sub-Zero model, and it was completely empty and turned off. I hadn't brought any milk with me. I figured maybe one of the movers had come back or let themselves in, but the security code hadn't been triggered according to the keypad. I wiped the mug out, feeling a bit annoyed, and moved on. Later that afternoon, I was up in the third-floor attic suite. It was a large, finished room with dark wood beams. I was setting up a writer's nook with a vintage desk and a typewriter. As I was adjusting the chair, I heard the distinct sound of a door clicking shut on the floor below me. "Hello?" I called out. No answer. I walked down to the second floor. All the bedroom doors were open, just as I'd left them, except for the nursery. I had staged it with a white crib and a rocking chair. The door was now firmly closed. I pushed it open. The rocking chair was moving, swaying back and forth very slowly, as if someone had just stood up from it. I didn't stay to investigate. I grabbed my bag and left for the day. I told myself the house was just drafty and that old pipes made doors swing. The final day was meant to be the photo day. The professional photographer was coming at 2 p.m. I got there at 8 a.m. to do one last walkthrough. I went into the formal dining room, which I had staged to look like a dinner party was about to happen. Fine china, crystal glasses, the works. One of the chairs had been pulled out from the table. Sitting on the plate was a small, hand-drawn thank you note written on a piece of dusty, yellowed stationery that didn't belong to my kit. It said, "The house feels much better now. I'll be staying in the blue room." There was no blue room. I had staged everything in neutrals, grays, whites, and tans. I was officially terrified. I called my boss, but she told me I was being imaginative and that the thank you note was a prank by the moving crew. She told me to finish the job or I'd lose my bonus. The photographer, a guy named Leo, arrived at 2 p.m. I stayed with him while he took shots of the main floor. When we got to the basement, which was a finished man cave area with a bar, Leo stopped and looked at his digital display. "Hey," he said, frowning, "did you put a person in the shot?" "What?" I asked, my heart skipping a beat. He showed me the screen. He had taken a long exposure shot of the wine cellar. In the far corner, behind the glass racks, there was a blurry, pale figure. It looked like a man in a very old-fashioned suit sitting on a crate. "I didn't see anyone in there," I whispered. We both walked over to the cellar. It was empty. There was no crate, and there was nowhere for a person to hide. We both decided to finish the shoot as quickly as possible. The last room was the hidden servants' quarters located behind the kitchen. It was a small, cramped suite. I hadn't staged it because the realtor said it wouldn't be shown, but Leo wanted to get a bonus shot for the floor plan. We pushed open the small door. The room wasn't empty. It had been staged, but not by me. The walls were covered in hundreds of Polaroids. They were all photos of the previous owners, the family that had moved to London. In each photo, their faces had been carefully cut out. In their place, a new face had been glued on. It was the face of a man I didn't recognize, a middle-aged man with a vacant, pleasant smile. In the corner of the room was a small blue rug. On top of it sat a single stage chair I had placed in the living room the day before. We heard a floorboard creak in the kitchen right outside the door. Leo and I didn't say a word. We bolted. We ran out the back service entrance, scrambled into our cars, and drove straight to the police station. The police searched the house that evening. They found the blue room in the servants' quarters. They also found a hidden crawl space behind the wine cellar. Inside, they found a small portable stove, a stack of stolen mail from the neighborhood, and a notebook. The notebook was a log of the staging process. The person had been living in the house the entire 3 days I was there. He had written critiques of my work. The pillows in the master are too flat. I don't like the fruit in the kitchen. It looks fake. She forgot to set a place for me at the table. The man was a former groundskeeper for the estate who had been fired 10 years earlier. He had never truly left the property, living in the woods and slipping into the house through a coal chute whenever it was vacant. He had become obsessed with the idea that the house was his stage and he was the star. They never caught him. When the police entered the house, the coal chute was open and there were fresh footprints in the mud leading into the forest. I quit the staging business a week later. I took a job in an office where I'm surrounded by people all day. Every time I walk into a perfectly decorated room or see a staged home in a magazine, I don't see beautiful furniture. I see the empty spaces where someone could be standing just out of frame, waiting for you to finish your work so they can move the chairs back.